Grand Theft Auto, Liberty City Stories. Released almost a year after Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, launching on fall 2005 exclusively for the PlayStation Portable, marking the beginning of Rockstar Games' 3D mobile GTA game releases. A PlayStation 2 version followed 1 year later, launching summer 2006. Despite becoming the best-selling PSP game of all time, with over 8 million units sold, and ranking among the top 50 best-selling PlayStation 2 titles, Liberty City Stories never received an official PC port. So in this video, we will take a detailed look at every viable way to play Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories on PC. All versions were benchmarked under identical conditions wherever possible, using identical scenes and consistent frame rate targets. To reflect a range of real-world setups, 3 different systems were used. An Intel Core i9 9900KF paired with an RTX 2080 Ti and 32 GB of DDR4 memory. A Ryzen 7 9800X3D paired with an RTX 5080 and 64 GB of DDR5 memory. And a ROG Ally with the Ryzen Z1 Extreme APU running in 30 watts mode for mobile setup benchmarks while also acting as a weaker AMD base system. This allowed testing not only raw performance, but also how well each version works with different architecture types, and there were differences in the benchmarks you definitely don't want missing out. The following versions of Liberty City Stories were tested. RELCS, a Vice City Total Conversion mod, testing Beta 5, Beta 6, as the Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories Fix Pack based on the Beta 6 version. Performance between Beta 5 and Beta 6 proved effectively identical, with mods having no measurable impact on performance. The PlayStation 2 version, using PCSX2, the PS2 version was benchmarked with separate tests for 30 and 60 frames per second targets and HD texture packs. The PlayStation Portable version, using PPSSPP, like the PS2 version, the PSP version was tested in the same manner, including separate benchmarks for 30 and 60 frames per second and with HD texture packs applied. BlueStacks Android version. The Android version was benchmarked with and without the 60 frames per second resolution fix APK. I excluded the LCS PC edition since it is effectively a modified PPS SPP build, introducing additional input and stability issues in my tests. The first and one of the most important things to compare is authenticity. In other words, how closely does each version replicate the original Liberty City Stories experience? All official ports, such as the emulated versions on PCSX2, PPSSPP, and BlueStacks, play like the original game, with the mobile port having its graphics completely reworked. From a scripting perspective, RELCS closely mirrors the official releases, almost identical. Mission flow, triggers, objectives, and pacing are recreated almost one-to-one. Most changes contain gameplay additions, such as native mouse and keyboard support, free aim, and fully remappable controls. Some carryovers from Vice City's PC controls also contain the ability to crouch and to hold and release punches. At the same time, some features are missing. The ferry system is absent, and a few side activities are either incomplete or unavailable. Visually, depending on what trail settings you use, RELCS positions itself between the PSP and PS2 versions. The mobile version deviates the most visually due to its post-processing and lighting model. There is a mod to replace the textures from RELCS with the mobile textures. PCSX2 and PPSSPP offer the highest level of accuracy, RELCS, preserves the structure and intent of Liberty City Stories while prioritizing control, freedom, and modern PC conventions. The choice here is not between right and wrong, but between preservation and adaptation. With authenticity established, the next question becomes more practical. How well does each version actually perform, and on what hardware? All versions run with 30 frames per second out of the box, but can get unlocked to run at 60 frames per second, although how well it works varies significantly. RELCS can get unlocked to 60 frames per second or higher using limit adjusting mods. Performance remains consistent, but exceeding 60 frames per second can cause physics issues and other bugs. The game speed isn't tied to the frame rate. RELCS ran reliably across all tested systems. However, on the Ryzen 7, the game had to be set to windowed mode in order to fix the skybox being rendered black. PCSX2 shows a much stronger dependency on hardware. On the tested AMD systems, a stable 60 frames per second is easily achievable, while the Intel i9 struggles to maintain consistent performance at unlocked 60 frames. Also, the frame rate from the PS2 version is directly tied to the game speed. Performance drops result in noticeable slow motion. PPSSPP runs stable no matter if at 30 or 60 frames per second. When playing with 60 frames per second, the game gets audio looping issues while in gameplay.
Hey, apartments cost money, Tony. Just you remember who pays the bills around here.
And uneven timings for cutscene animations. Similar as the PS2 version, the game speed in the PSP version is directly tied to the frame rate, so losing frames will slow down your game speed. PPSSPP's frame skip option can partially solve the slowdowns. The mobile version has the most noticeably frame time issues on 30 frames per second. Also, the resolution is locked at 720p. Only the unofficial 60 frames per second APK solves the resolution lock, enables 60 frames per second, and smooths the frame time, but introduces audio desynchronization in cutscenes.
Capiche?
I understand, boss.
Speaking about frame time, RELCS maintains a nearly flat frame timeline at around 16 milliseconds on all tested systems. PCSX2 produces excellent frame time results on the Ryzen 7, while showing frequent spikes on the i9 setup. The Ally performs pretty smooth at 60 frames per second, with occasional slowdowns in complex scenes. PPSSPP shows slightly uneven frame times at a 30 frames per second cap, while running significantly smoother at 60 frames per second across all systems. PPSSPP has the most consistent performance across all tested hardware. BlueStack shows the most unstable frame time behavior at 30 frames per second, with rhythmic spikes around 33 milliseconds. At 60 frames per second, frame time improves, but remains less consistent. Beyond performance, long-term stability is where many versions begin to diverge. Crashes, soft locks, and mission-breaking bugs determine whether a game is actually playable from start to finish. RELCS generally runs stable during free roaming and regular gameplay. However, crashes can occur after specific missions when scripted events are triggered, such as a phone call after the mission Love on the Rocks. Another example is the mission Driving Mr. Leone, where the game likes to crash right before completing the mission. Outside of these scripted moments, RELCS rarely crashes during normal play. One exception is the Liberty City Stories fixed pack from Gravity, which crashes frequently and unpredictably, but often when opening the save menu or other game menus, making it unsuitable for a complete playthrough.
Some of our boys just screwed up a simple, no-brain fucking job.
PCSX2 and PPSSPP prove entirely crash-free across all tested systems. No emulator-level crashes or mission-related failures were encountered during testing. BlueStacks shows the poorest stability. Controller rumble causes crashes in roughly half of all vibration events, and even without rumble, the game may crash on long play sessions. RELCS Beta 6 contains several soft locks, primarily during cutscenes. In most cases, skipping the cutscene allows the game to continue normally. Beta 5, however, had a critical hard lock in the final mission during testing, caused by an unkillable NPC that prevents mission completion entirely. The PS2 version contains a known cutscene soft lock during the mission Biker Heat, which can be bypassed by skipping the cutscene. No soft locks or hard locks were encountered in PPSSPP during testing. Reports of mission-breaking bugs exist for the Android version, but no soft lock could be reproduced during testing with the version 2.4 60 frames per second patch applied. For maximum reliability, PCSX2 and PPSSPP remain the safest options. RELCS is largely stable, but contains isolated failure points that require patience and occasional workarounds. Liberty City Fix Pack should be avoided. BlueStacks varies between running good at 60 frames per second, but crashing randomly in longer play sessions. Although, since it's the only version introducing autosave, it's not as bad as crashing while playing the other versions. Even if two versions look and perform similarly, controls can completely change how Liberty City Stories feels. Input freedom is one of the biggest differences between emulation and a native PC-based version like RELCS. RELCS is the only version that supports mouse and keyboard natively. Gunfights benefit from free aim. Aiming feels natural. The inputs feel super direct. While this reduces the reliance on auto-aim and changes the difficulty balance in certain missions, it significantly improves playability in most situations. PCSX2 technically offers no native mouse and keyboard support. You can emulate controller inputs using external software such as ReWASD, but Liberty City Stories requires very different control behavior on foot versus in vehicles, making consistent mouse control impractical. PPSSPP offers built-in mouse and keyboard mapping, but the problem remains the same. Mouse aim can only emulate analog stick input, resulting in awkward aiming and poor precision. BlueStacks also lacks native mouse and keyboard integration in a useful way. Just like PCSX2, it would require external remapping and still suffers from the same on-foot versus driving input conflict. RELCS supports controllers natively with fully customizable bindings. Using Ginput can further improve controller behavior and compatibility on modern systems. PCSX2 offers excellent controller support with supporting both X input and direct input devices. With third-party drivers and an original DualShock controller, it's even possible to use pressure sensitivity inputs, enabling precise acceleration and braking behavior. PPSSPP also supports controllers well, but introduces one limitation. Because the original PSP had no right analog stick, extra steps are needed to enable proper dual analog camera controls. The mobile version on BlueStacks only supports controller inputs, although controller rumble can crash the emulator or the game frequently, forcing players to disable vibration entirely. Up to this point, we've compared authenticity, performance, stability, and controls. But there's one final factor that often determines what players actually choose: practical access. How easy is it to obtain, set up, and legally justify each version? RELCS received a DMCA takedown, meaning there's no official download source. Although practically alternative downloads of Beta 5 and 6 are easy found with your favorite web search engine, It comes with the full game pre-installed, making it compared to the other versions the easiest way to get the game. PCSX2 requires 2 legally protected components, a PlayStation 2 BIOS and a Liberty City Stories ISO file. Obtaining these legally requires owning original hardware and dumping the files yourself. PPSSPP only requires the game's ISO, which also only can get legitimate required. Dumping the game from original hardware, requiring software or hardware modding your system. If you live in a few countries where Israel isn't illegal, getting the game from ROM sites could be your solution. Playing the Android port on emulators either requires you to log into the Google Play Store to buy and download the game, meaning the need to expose a Google account to third-party emulation services. Depending on the legal situation where you live, you might be able to download a free version from the internet, although installing these requires you to install third-party file browsers to move and install the game. Either way, comes with flaws and impracticality. From a purely realistic standpoint, most players will gravitate toward either RELCS or PPSSPP. So, with all categories examined, what is now actually the best way to enjoy Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories on your PC? When you aim for plug and play, PPSSPP will suit you well. It's also the version that resembles the OG experience the most, since the PSP was the retail platform for this game. RELCS is likely to run very well on your system, regardless if you are playing on high or low-end hardware. This is the version with the far biggest modding compatibility. Although you might need to fine-tune some INI settings or install additional mods for the best experience, this is still pretty much plug and play. PCSX2 and Android emulation ain't a bad idea per se, but you need to be aware that these versions acquire the most time, setting everything up to get the best experience. Hardware compatibility or other problems, especially at 60 frames per second, could influence your experience. Last but not least, this question is also a matter of optical preference. Each version has its own atmosphere and feeling to it. And while RELCS and Android offer the best quality in terms of graphics, the PSP and PS2 versions remain unmatched when resembling the OG experience.